Several minutes of commercial-free football starts now.
Here are the Purple Mortgage Guys.
Hey, welcome to another edition of Purple Mortgage Guys, coming to you on this Monday after the Vikings moved to 7-1, knocking off the Washington Commanders yesterday in a game that was definitely a roller coaster. Looked like probably a loss, looked like all the makings of a trap game, and they come out in the fourth quarter from a 17-7 deficit, score the last 13 points of the game on a Greg Joseph field goal for a little redemption, and walk away victorious from Washington 20-17 in what could be described as probably another resilient, come from behind, kind of a gritty, ugly, if you will, win. But nonetheless, 7-1 going into Buffalo next week. That we'll have a lot of time to talk about, with or without Josh Allen. That's going to be a tough game. And really want to focus today on what we witnessed yesterday in Washington. So some of the big plays: Delvin Cook caught a nice touchdown pass, one-handed catch in the end zone to tie the game up. JJ had a nice touchdown catch early in the game, had that deep ball from Cousins. I think Cousins got the wind knocked out of him to really kind of change the momentum of the game. And then there was a few other big plays defensively as well. Goose, your man Harrison, the hitman, had another interception. And we saw Caleb Evans step in for Cameron Dantzler to come up big as well in the secondary. So, guys, interested to hear what your takes were on the game and where you see us sitting, I guess, going into Buffalo. So, Tanner, I'm going to start with you.
Yeah, yesterday I didn't really feel like anything different than what we've been seeing all year. It came out hot, firing right away. Took the foot off the gas for a couple quarters. Second quarter, most of the third quarter again. That's been our worst quarter this year. And then finished it up when we needed them to the most in the fourth quarter, which is not something that this team has done the last 2 years. So our record definitely could be very different than what it actually shows at 7-1. We had a lot of players step up yesterday. I can't believe TJ Hawkinson came in and played as well as he did. In less than
9 catches,
days.
70 yards.
9 catches, 70 yards, less than 7 days with the team. Looks like he's been here for years already. So I think he's going to be a very big asset to this team for a very long time. Caleb Evans, rookie fourth-round corner, came in and stepped in for Cam Dantzler, who got hurt, and played tremendously. We couldn't ask for much more from him. And I think a lot of teams are very inconsistent this year, even the really good ones. I mean, even you look at Buffalo yesterday, lost to the Jets on the road. But I think we're really going to find out what this team is actually made of here in the next 4 weeks. For majority of the schedule so far, we've been playing teams with losing records, but we're going to be going to Buffalo, who's 6-2, hosting Dallas, who's 6-2, hosting New England on Thanksgiving, who's 5-4, and hosting the Jets, who are 6-3. So our next 4 games, all 4 of those teams have winning records, and I think we're really going to find out who we are.
You guys have this too yesterday. I know it got really murky there in the third quarter, and maybe we're frustrated with different parts of the team at that time, but it was like we could easily be 6-2, which is not a bad record. But then you look ahead and you're like, well, we could then go on like a 3-game losing streak just as easily. So to come back from that going into the games we have coming up, I think was huge. So
yeah.
Goose, what did you see yesterday?
Yeah, I felt like I talked to a couple of people about, I mean, it felt like as much of a must-win game for a 6-1 team as it can, just because the gauntlet that we're coming up against, I feel like you need as big of a buffer as you can to afford to lose a couple games. My biggest concern, and we touched on it a little bit Friday, was it doesn't seem like we do well against teams where it's our weakness against their strength and their weakness against our strength. I'd rather kind of go toe-to-toe. So when you see their D-line, even without Chase Young and all those first-rounders and their sack leaders being in the interior, I was pretty nervous about it and was wondering how much we could cover that up. But they were resilient. That obviously they're their touchdown with the referee, and when Heineke threw it up into triple coverage, and absolutely no way that pass should be completed if not turned over, turns into a touchdown. I feel like in years past, that play could have completely dictated the game, and we lose and we feel sorry for ourselves, and you don't feel like any ownership's taken because it wasn't their fault. And this team just, it doesn't ever feel like that this year. Like something bad happens, it's like, all right, let's come back and put it together. So the resilient bunch. I think seeing Kirk Cousins get the air knocked out of him kind of makes you realize how durable he's been in his career. Like he's back in after one play, and he's just always available and doesn't get injured. And I love the swagger and the confidence he's playing with. Like I've spent hours last night watching post-game videos of just the guys having fun. Like it looks like everyone's having the time of their lives. Hawkinson's interviews seems like he's never been in an environment like this. He's just happy to play for a contender and having fun. And it's a fun team to watch. I'm trying to soak it in the moment.
Do you guys see Ziggy was dancing with them in the locker room last night? And then you saw Kirk, of course, on the plane with his change or his chains and no shirt on. So I can't imagine what he's going to look like if they come up with a W in Buffalo. That's be something to watch for. So
yeah.
Let's get right into our predictions. I think we all saw this as a close game, just rattling off. Goose had 27-20, I had 23-20, Tanner had 27-26. We all saw it as a close game, scoring roughly in the 20s for both teams. It ended up being that way yesterday, but sometimes we see the result, but we don't see how we get there. I don't think any of us planned on a back judge just launching himself at our safety and taking Cam Bynum completely out of the play. We probably didn't see being down by 10 in Washington in the fourth quarter, but nonetheless, still another close three-point game. So our predictions on Friday were Kendricks. You thought was gonna have 2 picks, Goose.
Yeah.
I kind of took a cupcake there on the you like that because I think if we won, there's no way that didn't happen, but it did. And then 2 touchdowns for JJ. He was dangerously close to a second there, Tanner. So, overall, I think the game maybe played out differently, but the end result was kind of what we were all thinking. So, nobody won again from the viewers or listeners. Nobody got the score correct. So, I encourage you all to, again, next week at Buffalo, throw some scores out there. If you win, a good chance you might win the drawing as well for the Jets game on December 4th. So keep that in mind. And want to get into, guys, the Rants and Raves. I'm really excited for this one because I think we've got some differing views on what we should be excited about and maybe what we should be concerned on. So, Tanner, I'm going to let you start. Give me a rant, something that you are we did win the game, of course, but something that concerns you going forward or from yesterday.
Yeah, I feel like it's pretty obvious. I don't know. I feel like you guys are probably gonna have the same one, but Ed Ingram is a disaster every single week. And you go in and you bring a free agent like Chris Reed in, who's a veteran who has played before, has experience, and I don't know why they don't shuffle him out and give him a shot and let Ingram just sit and learn. He is a rookie. Not tarnished by any means. I mean, he's got a long way to go yet in his career, and I don't think it's over by any means, but I don't understand why they don't bring somebody like Schlappman or Chris Reed in to get some reps and just see what they offer. And I shouldn't throw all the blame on Ed Ingram. Ezra Cleveland had a 0.0 pass protection grade yesterday from PFF. 9 pressures is what he gave up. So
our guards are not playing well at all.
The interior in general just makes me really nervous going forward. Into the second half of the schedule, we are playing some really, really good defenses coming up here, and Buffalo's interior is really good with Jordan Phillips and Ed Oliver. So I don't know if they'll make a change or not. We keep winning games, so I would say that it's probably not going to change, but I definitely think Chris Reed should be getting some reps at this point over Ed Ingram.
Gotcha.
PFF doesn't give out like a participation point for just suiting up. 0.0. That's brutal. figured you get a point for stepping on the field.
Yeah.
What do you got, Goose?
I'm going with our offense. I'm glad that every time we've needed them, and KOC hit it with the locker room speech, like when you need them, they're there. But you can also tell that he's harping on, like, we need to put together a complete game. This team should live and die by their offense, and I think it's been a few weeks now where our defense has kept us in games, made plays, put them in good positions with field position, turnovers. And I don't want to discount that because I think the Commanders' defense is really talented. It's kind of why I give a pass to Ed Ingram. I think going up against J.J. Watt one-on-one as a rookie is a tall task. I think Payne and Allen are a really tough task. And I think with Zimmer, everyone's biggest pet peeve is like these rookies aren't getting a shot and you got to earn your time and you're sitting on the bench. I'm hoping that there's nothing more valuable to Ed Ingram and to Ezra to work through it and face those challenges head on. And hopefully, I'm hoping, I don't want to look too far ahead and take away from Friday's episode, but it's looking like teams are running right down the Bills' throat. So I know Ed Oliver is a pretty great pass rusher. Hopefully there's so much on their heels after picking up 6 a carry that it buys our O linemen some time there. So my rant is the offense in a whole. I want them to give our defense a break. I don't know how much our defense is set up to keep them in every game.
Agree with that. I'm going to just piggyback on you guys, but then I'm going to ask Tanner, I'm going to ask you a question on this. So my rant would be the offense as well, but you hear the word resilient all the time with this team, and that I think it describes them perfectly. But consistent, they are not, especially on offense. It's the scripted plays that we typically will score a touchdown. And then that third quarter had been an area of concern last week against Arizona. They scored a couple touchdowns, but this last week, again, it was second quarter, all of the third quarter, and in the fourth quarter, they turned it on. So Tanner, my question to you is it offensive play calling and strategy? Is it Cousins after an interception, maybe getting a little skittish and checking down more? Or is it really as simple as interior pass rush just makes everything that much harder, and it's just a grind to get anything going?
Yeah, I really feel like it could be a combination of things. But Kevin O'Connell this year he had a few yesterday too where I'm like scratching my head like, why did you call that in that scenario? But I don't catch myself doing that nearly as much as I have dating all the way back to even to Pat Shurmur in 2017. We had a top 10 offense that year, and I still, even that year, I had a lot of complaints about certain play calls in certain situations. So I think it's just a very diverse scheme, and I think it's just communication and everybody still generating chemistry together and getting on the same page. I feel like the offense is pretty young as a whole. And I do think the interior offensive line is a big issue right now, because all the successful offenses in the league, I feel like they live and die by eating clock and having a good run game, and that's not something that we've established well this year.
Right.
And interior pass protection's been poor. So I'd place a lot of blame on them, but I do think that there is some chemistry issues as well.
It did feel like yesterday there was a few more drop balls than normal. Some of those 50-50s we didn't come down with. And then I think the refs as a whole on both sides were letting a lot of the hand fighting and some of those maybe borderline pass interference calls, they just weren't getting called. And I think it went both ways. So that probably played a part of it there as well. What did you guys think of, before we get into our raves here, what did you think about throwing that interception right before halftime? I've been wanting him to do that. Like when they were in Miami, they ran the ball in the red zone, very conservative, and ended up kicking the field goal. I would rather go for the dagger there and the touchdown. And I don't think you can have it both ways. You can't be upset about him not going for the touchdown and then also be upset about him throwing a pick. Like it doesn't work that way. But what do you guys think on that?
Yeah, I agree, Brent. In the moment, it's hard to not be like, man, we didn't walk away with points, but with the receivers we have, especially JJ, I maybe wish that the throw gave him a little bit better of a chance than coming back through the corner. But a lot of times, depending on the officiating, you get that call and it keeps the drive alive. You're on the 1 yard line. But absolutely, I like putting the foot on the pedal and trying to finish drives with touchdowns, and not just playing for points always conservatively. I made a quick note when you were talking about the officiating. I love that we're a really disciplined team that's not committing a lot of penalties, but sometimes I feel like we need to be better at adjusting. Like, hey, they're not calling anything on St. Juice kind of hanging all over JJ. Like, let's play a little bit more physical. Maybe wide receivers can get away with a little bit more. Like, I feel like we maybe need to be a little bit more fluid there with, okay, we can get away with a little bit more today. There's nothing more frustrating than watching a game where you commit 10 penalties and beat yourself. But if you can adjust in game and realize what you can get away with, what you can't, I think that's one thing we need to do better.
They did call a penalty on that pick six. I think that one was a pretty easy one, but
yeah,
up until that point, they hadn't thrown the flag much on anything in the secondary. So, all right, let's get into our raves. I have a feeling we might all agree on this one too, but Tanner, what do you got for a rave?
So I actually have three. I was gonna let you guys go first, and then pick the one that you guys didn't.
We're gonna pivot then, and we're gonna let you go last because I don't have.
Yeah, let's do
Goose,
that.
Goose,
Brent, you start us off.
All right, I'm gonna take the obvious one. I absolutely love TJ Hawkinson and what we did there. I don't think without him yesterday, I don't think there's any way we won that game. That opening drive, he had a big third down conversion, I think it was, for like 19 yards. And I don't think there's no way Herb Smith makes that play. I love what we're doing there. I saw some things already last night. He played yesterday about as much, if not a little more, than he does in an average Lions game. So I think we're going to really utilize him well. He said he's up to speed. I think this was on the NBC broadcast last night. Out of 10, like, how comfortable are you in the system? He's like 9.5. The only reason it's half is because I'm still living in a hotel. So it's like he's ready to go. Midwest
he needs a home loan.
He's huge, and I think Cousins and him are going to just keep developing that chemistry. I think that was a home run by the front office, and I'm really excited to see him going forward. So,
for sure, I couldn't agree more. I would say the overall culture. Like, I already touched on it a little bit, but I legitimately spent hours watching social media, locker room. Like, KOC felt like he gave out 12 game balls, and I'm all for it. Like, and I think they were all deserved. You want to recognize Hawkinson for picking up the playbook and being such a big part, and Kirk coming back to his old team, and Harrison Smith with another game in a row with an interception and a big turning point. So sometimes it almost felt like Zimmer had like rules of like, hey, we have one game ball and that's how it works. Like, I'm not giving out like frilly awards. And I think the players just are having the time of their lives. Like, they're having fun. And I think the new school player like understands that it's a lot more fun winning, and that if you're going to be in chains on an airplane or blasting music in the locker room, like, you need to keep winning to keep that environment up. And so that's their own motivation. So just the overall culture of this team, how much fun they're having, how much they seem to get along with one another. Like, teams in the past that win Super Bowls, it seems like they all genuinely love to be around each other. So that's definitely my rave.
It's got kind of the 09 vibes around the team. I don't know if you guys remember that team at all, but it was the same type of thing with Favre in the locker room. So, but I think there was reports then there was some I don't remember the word they used, but some sort of like at odds with each other in the locker room type thing. Schism is what they used at the time, and from the outside looking in, it didn't look that way. But I don't think there's that with this team at all, to Goose's point. So
yeah.
Tanner, did we take two of your three, or do you got three of them for us?
Brent, you did take my first one, Brent, but I think TJ Hawkinson was kind of a given because My expectation was he was going to have a few touches, but I didn't think he was going to come in and have 9 catches for 70 yards and be a huge asset in the blocking game as well in his very first game with us. So, Hawkinson and Caleb Evans deserves a lot of love for coming in, locking down his guys, and making 2 big tackle for losses. In his first full, I guess, real action as a pro. And then I guess the other one I really want to hit on is finally giving the Vikings second half defense some love yesterday. This is probably the first time since 2017 I feel like this team actually kind of has I don't even know what I'd call it, but like a swarming mentality, I guess. We've had a lot of tackles for losses this year. Zadarius Smith, Danielle Hunter had 2 yesterday. Caleb Evans had 2 yesterday. Eric Kendricks looked like old Eric Kendricks yesterday. And it's just fun to see a defense, because defenses, they live and die off of that type of mentality. When you're making plays like that constantly behind the line of scrimmage, that gets everybody going. And that leads from one drive to another drive to another drive. And the game was 20-17 yesterday, but I think without that official interference that we had, this wasn't really a close game, or it shouldn't have been a close game at any point yesterday. So Vikings defense gets probably my number one rave for yesterday.
Cool. Well, there you have it, Rants and Raves, guys. I want to close on this for today. Josh Allen's got some, I'm just looking at it now, slight pain, arm injury, painful loss at the Jets. Chances he plays Sunday probably still pretty good, I would guess. But yeah. Do you guys want to see Josh Allen, or do you want to? Yes. Do you want to see Case Keenum back there and make it a more winnable game?
I want to be tested. I want to go up against Josh Allen, even though we'll still probably hear oh, well, he was banged up, and I want to see him go against elite talent and play a good game. And I've watched a lot of their last 2 games, being against the Packers and then watching them not when the Vikings are playing. Wait, no, it was a noon game. But we were at the bar, multiple TVs, and kind of checking in, and they look human. He's got 4 interceptions in his last 2 games. Their run game seems like it's struggling. Their run defense, the Packers had 200 plus yards against them, and it seemed like the Jets were gashing them right up the middle. So one, I feel like this is the first time I felt like it's winnable and that they look human. But yeah, I for sure want to go toe to toe with Josh Allen.
Yeah, this is the best team we're going to play on the schedule this year, in my opinion. Most well-rounded from top to bottom, and I want them at their best on their home turf, just to see what we're made of. I don't know if you guys had a chance to see my stat I tweeted out last night, but all 4 of the Vikings losses that they've had in team history at Buffalo have come by 5 points or less. So I'm expecting a close game.
I remember one of those from, I want to say it was 2014. Had to be 2014, 8 years ago, last time they were in Buffalo.
Sammy Watkins on
Sammy Watkins. Young, immature Brent got upset after that and slightly punched a hole in the wall. So then he realized that he shouldn't take it that seriously. But I do remember that very, very, very well. So
how do you slightly punch a hole in a wall, Brent?
Well, there's the drywall, there's a little wrinkle and it's a soft spot.
Oh, okay.
Good thing I didn't hit the stud.
Not all the way through. Yeah.
Oh man. I agree though. You're not going to win them all. You might as well test yourself, see where you're at. You get blown out, but you're going to come back as a better team. I don't see that happening, but I want Josh Allen to play as well. We'll see though. It went from a 9.5 spread down to 7.5. Maybe that's the Josh Allen injury or perceived injury a little bit, but we'll see what happens. We'll talk obviously a lot more about that later this week, but anything on closing, guys, related to the team or the game that you wanted to hit on?
We were at a 9.5 spread going into Buffalo. Wow.
Before this last weekend.
That's insulting.
It is insulting.
I think my only comments are, I feel like Friday's episode is maybe my most anticipated, and I'm excited to talk about this game coming up and how much this means for our season and kind of what we look like. So I'm excited to talk about it. 7-1.
The division is basically over. Green Bay didn't they scored 9 points yesterday. Lost to the
Zero, yeah,
Lions.
0 in the first half.
The Bears running game is coming alive. Fields is looking good, but they lost again to Miami. So the division, if it's not over, I don't think we want any part of the playoffs. If we don't win the division at this point, that would be an ugly end of the season. But we're just talking about Philadelphia, Dallas, New York, maybe hopefully maybe beating themselves up a little bit in the coming weeks, and then playing for a 1, 2, maybe 3 seed in the playoffs. So exciting point of the season. I don't think any the three of us thought we'd be 7-1 going into this Buffalo game, but I know none of us thought we'd have a better record than the Bills going into this game, right? So
Yeah, I don't think so.
I'm with you, Goose. I'm excited to talk about this one coming up later this week. In the meantime, if you guys need anything on a mortgage loan, Goose, Tanner, myself would love to help you out with that. Otherwise, we will talk to you again on Friday. Have a great week, everybody.
Look out!